Good afternoon, Mr. Shoemaker. Thank you for joining me today so that we can go over the results of Elena's assessment. I'm going to give you the Iowa-Nebraska articulation norms because I'm going to reference this throughout our meeting today, and then you can also have them at home if you want to reference them. So Elena completed the Clinical Assessment of Articulation and Phonology, second edition, also known as the CAP 2, and this assessed her articulation and phonology skills. The first part of the test, I showed pictures to her, and then I asked her what they were. There was a total of 44 pictures in this part of the test. The first part of this, there was 27 pictures, and it assessed her initial and final sounds in the word, so the sounds at the beginning and the end of the word. So if we look at pig, I was looking to see that she could produce p and g. She did really well with this overall and had 0 errors, as we can see down here. If a child couldn't produce these sounds, I would reference our Iowa-Nebraska articulation norms, and if we were looking at the word pig and they couldn't produce p, you can see that p is supposed to be mastered by the age of 3 in females, and so then I would recommend speech therapy. But like I said, she had 0 errors, so I have no concerns. The next part had 8 pictures in them, and they assessed cluster words. Cluster words have 2 or more consonants that appear together without a vowel in between them. So if we look at flag, the f is a cluster because it's 2 consonants without a vowel in between them. If a child couldn't produce this cluster, they could say fag and completely leave out the L, or they might say fwag, changing the L to a W. Elena did have 1 error in this in the word treasure. She said, instead of saying j, she said duh. So instead of saying treasure, she said treader. This is a trickier sound, so I have no concerns for her because it's not supposed to develop until 6 or 7, just because it is a little more tricky. So I don't have any concerns for her on this part. The last part of the pictures, there was 9 pictures, and they assessed multisyllabic words. These are words that have more than 1 part when you say them out loud. For example, in computer, if we break it up, it's computer. If a child struggles with multisyllabic words, they might leave out part of the word or substitute another sound. So if we're still looking at computer, they might just say pewter, or they might say tomputer instead of computer. We can see again that she had 0 errors in this part of the test, and so overall I have no concerns for her so far. Do you have any questions for me?
No, ma'am.
Perfect. We'll move on to the last part. And the last part of the test assessed school-age sentences. It had 8 sentences in total, and it assessed articulation in connected speech, so in sentences rather than in single words. I read the sentence to her, and then I asked her to repeat it back to me. So the first sentence was, "The mouse works on math at the chalk table." I said this, and then I asked her to repeat it back to me. She did show some struggles with repeating the whole sentence back to me, like remembering the whole sentence. The only speech sound error that she made was in thermometer. She substituted for n, so instead of thermometer, she said thermometer. If we were to look at our Iowa-Nebraska articulation norms, is supposed to be mastered by the age of 3 in females. However, this is a more complex word, and so I don't have any recommendations for it because we know that she can say in the majority of her other words. If she were to start struggling with other words, this might be something just to keep an eye on. She did score below age level on this, but I did have an administration error in 2 sentences. She was struggling to remember the last part of the sentence, and instead of repeating the whole entire sentence over again, I just helped her with that part of the sentence. So like in this sentence, the mouse walks on the high wire above the crowd. She said the mouse walks on the, and then she couldn't remember that part, so I just said high wire above the crowd instead of repeating the whole thing. So I did have to count those wrong. So this could be why she scored below on this one, because if I would have said the whole sentence over, then she might have been able to say it. So due to that administration error, I'm not concerned that she isn't there, that she was below. If she's having troubles with memory overall or just like remembering sentences at home, then I would love to reevaluate her at that time if we see more struggles with it. Overall, she did very well on the assessment. If you see any concerns at home, like I said, or in her grades at school, I would be happy to talk with you and reevaluate her at that time if we think it's necessary. Do you have any questions for me?
No.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for meeting with me today.
Thank you.